Welcome to Salesology, conversations with sales leaders, the art of faster, easier, more profitable sales. When you're ready to transform your sales for today's transforming market, we've got you covered with your host, the queen of cold calling and founder of Salesology, award-winning author, speaker, sales trainer, and coach, Wendy Weiss.
Hi, welcome to Salesology, conversations with sales leaders, the art of faster, easier, more profitable sales. And I'm your host, Wendy Weiss. I am the founder of Salesology and the Salesology prospecting method. I'm also known as the queen of cold calling. And today, my very special guest is Marsha Wilson. And Marsha is the CEO and co-founder of ScaleSec, which is a veteran-owned business and a security-first cloud consultancy advising clients who want to run regulated workloads in AWS, Google Cloud, and Azure. Her career has afforded her great opportunities to support clients in the Department of Defense, the energy sector, healthcare, and more recently, clients looking to optimize and secure their cloud environment. Marsha is married to her co-founder, Aaron. They have 3 kids, 2 cats, and 1 dog. Sounds like the perfect family. And she resides in San Diego, California. And in the spirit of full disclosure here, Marsha is also a former client. So yes. Welcome, Marsha.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to be on your show. I'm very excited to chat with you guys today and maybe provide some honesty and insights to the folks that are listening about, the daily, weekly, monthly, and annual challenges of figuring out sales.
Absolutely. So tell us the backstory here, because when I first met you, you were a brand new salesperson. So yes. How did you end up being a salesperson? And then 2, how did you end up being the CEO and co-founder of ScaleSec?
Certainly. Well, I have, since my time in the military, when I left the Army in 97, I've always been in consulting. And consulting has a natural sales component to it as a function of continuing to provide, great service to clients that you've developed a strong, trusted advisor relationship with. And I had just finished some 1099 contracting when I was hired by a company as their business development manager. And I was not wise enough to recognize that as also an account executive position. And so when I got there was certainly the base pay, but a lot of it also had to do with selling. And it was selling based on folks calling in the front door. It was based on my reaching out to people during conferences. And I was absolutely flummoxed. I had no idea how to do something when I hadn't already developed a relationship that someone had handed off to me, more on the customer success development side versus basic, for lack of a better term, cold calling. And that was why I reached out to you, and you were integral in my ability to get over the fear factor of understanding that when you are delivering something that someone needs, you are not bothering them. And that was really rough for me to get over. And that was around, like you said, around 2015. Concurrent to that, my husband and co-founder had just left his job at Amazon at AWS. And I kept my day job because we had creatures that were depending on us and also a bank that wanted their mortgage money. And so I stayed until 2018 January is when I came over full time to be part of ScaleSec. But the company was founded in April of 2015. And so we're rolling through year 9 right now.
Hey, so I read on your website that you speak Chinese. Where did you learn to speak Chinese?
In the Army, actually. In 1991, I spent a year at Defense Language Institute in Monterey, California, as part of my 4-year commit to Uncle Sam. And I had demonstrated the aptitude to learn languages, and I can still speak fairly well, not fluently because it's pretty rusty. But the cadence of my speech is about the same as my cadence in English, but I just drop all the nouns and verbs because I don't remember them.
Well, I'll have to hook you up with my sister, who also speaks Chinese, but no longer speaks it well. And maybe the 2 of you can practice together.
That would be fun. Please do. Yes.
Yeah, yes. So I'm curious about something. When you had this business development manager job,
mm-hmm.
And I'm asking this question because I see so many companies that they hire someone that either knows the industry or they hire someone that they think is a born salesperson. I'm making finger quotes here for our audience that can't see us. And, they teach them about whatever it is they're selling. They like teach them everything. I bet that took a long time, right? They taught you a lot of stuff about programs. Or no, Marsha's shaking her head. They taught you nothing.
They taught me nothing. They sent me a computer and said, you're responsible for jumping on calls. And I'm like, okay, happy to jump on calls. But, there was no call list. There was no client list. They were basically like, well, next time you have a friend that talk to them, blah, blah, blah. It was not a great deal of support. It's sort of a, well, it was just challenging.
So how did you feel about doing that?
It was nauseating. It was frightening. It was the first time I'd ever been in a job where I was completely incompetent, and I've never been incompetent in a job, and that job nearly broke me.
Oh, that's awful. So I'm glad you were able to get out and join ScaleSec quickly.
Yes.
Quickly. Yeah.
I don't blame anybody. I mean, in that instance, we all tried to our level of best, and we all agreed it was probably not a good fit, and moved on from there. I think so many folks, especially folks that are going through layoffs right now, when you recognize it is no different than not a good fit, being let go like I was from that job to go find where I have a better fit, and they are now able to hire someone who is a better fit for them as well. It's always shocking. It's always eviscerating to an extent, but it's sometimes the best thing for all parties, even when the moment that it's happening, it's miserable.
I agree up to a point, because I think that if a company hires someone and does not provide them with the appropriate sales training, that's a recipe for that new hire to fail.
Absolutely. And that is why I failed. There's no doubt. I mean, I spent my money reaching out to you in order to try and compensate for the lack of sales training I was not getting from that company. I was willing to spend my own money with you in order to determine the right way to succeed there. So I feel like I did, I leaned in for that kiss to at least 51%.
Okay. So, you joined the business that your husband started while you were in the sales job, and you joined it fairly quickly.
Yes.
So you were able to take those lessons that you learned from working with me and then being on the job, the sales job, however long you were on the sales job. Mm-hmm. So you were able to take that into the new company. So where did you start once you joined ScaleSec?
Certainly. So we both started ScaleSec, and I was kind of moonlighting with it, making sure that, the documents were getting done and basic business processes were happening even before I was a full-time person over here at ScaleSec. But we started that not within, and this is even more into just like having a small business. We did not start with any particular intention other than not wanting to work, for example, to one of the larger Big Four firms. And so we did not have an exit plan in mind. And so we had no growth plan in mind. We just kind of said, this is better than over there. And as a result, when people found out that we had hung out our own shingle, business came to us. And so I would say for the first 3 to 4 years, we basically were just word of mouth, and we were happy to grow as business came in, and filling those pipelines was actually pretty, like, we opened the door and there were 5 people. So we shooed them in and closed the door and waited until, it was a luxurious time, because there was a lot of expansion going on in cloud at that time and not a lot of folks that specialized in security. I would say fast forward even to like the end of 2020, because 2020 was a very good year for us. There were lots of people that were moving folks home, and the challenge of building out the business just fell into our face. And when 2021 hit, that is when people started to kind of contract a little bit. It was not as crazy in 21 as 20, but we started to recognize if we wanted to keep and maintain a team of 20 people, we were going to have to do more proactive sales. And it's that point at which I believe that the training that you had provided me actually started to come locked into the gears of making ScaleSec a sustainable, stable consultancy for not only my team that I had already hired, but also providing the kind of quality talent that the enterprises were looking for.
Okay. So I do want to ask you about the business development piece that you were just talking about. But before I do that, I want to take a step back because I didn't ask you this. What exactly does ScaleSec do?
Thank you. Thank you. So we established the company to provide deep cloud security expertise, Amazon first, and then Google came to us and said, don't you want to do this here too? And so we developed a partnership with them as well. And then I believe it was in 2021 or 2020 in that neighborhood that we added Azure as well. But many clients that are focused on developing applications think of security last, or think of security during the DevOps pipeline as soon as you've actually deployed a instance in the cloud that needs to be monitored by security. And in fact, there are so many places before you actually build that application that you could put security and guardrails and frameworks into place so that when you deploy, you are already secure and ready to go. And it makes it much easier for audit, makes it much easier to demonstrate compliance. So we started out as a security first place. What we found was as companies matured or failed to mature when they're trying to do that full transition from on-prem in the data centers into the cloud, that many were stalling. And it had as much to do with not necessarily understanding all the nuances of the technology security-wise, but also had to do with not understanding how to enable their business to think in a technology-minded way. So retail companies, supply chain companies, healthcare providers, people building health tech stacks in a SaaS-like manner that weren't necessarily ready to answer the questions that the clients were asking with regard to how is data being secured, how is privacy being handled, et cetera. So we have morphed not from just only security, but a cloud-first consultancy that looks at your adoption methodology, your full security program, and engineering and remediation that's necessary for you to go from where you are to where you want to be. And as I'm sure we're going to discuss later on, changing your pivot, as anyone needs to do after 9 years in business, also changes the pivot that you have with regard to sales.
Absolutely. So you started out, I'm guessing that you did not start out with 20 people. You have 20 people today, but started out, it was you and Aaron, and I guess the kids and the cats and the dog.
It was friends and family at the beginning. We had 4 or 5 people on and off, depending on what was going on, through, I want to say, end of 2019. Yep, that's right. And it was 2019. I remember we had 6 people, and I just remember being blown away. Oh my gosh, there are 6 people that believe in our ability to actually do business. It was really cool. And that's when we actually started looking on the internet and reaching out to people on LinkedIn and saying, you've been doing certain types of things. Are you interested in doing them with ScaleSec too? And it sort of grew from there.
Wow. So how did you manage that really scaling your business and growing your business, hiring people without complete chaos ensuing?
We generally did not have and do not have a bunch of itty bitty small contracts. We have long-term clients that will work with us for 2, 3, 4 years. In fact, I would argue the entry for most of our clients is, let's do a first dance together. Let's do an assessment, low dollar value, short duration, find out if you snore at night, those types of things. And once you finish an engagement with us during an assessment, you will come to know the kinds of questions we ask, the kinds of quality humans that we bring to the table, and the generous nature of our reporting, which is to say, when you're done with that assessment, we're happy to help you with remediation, but you also have enough information that if you are actually capable of hiring the people you want at the rates that you need, we give you enough information that you could literally go off and do it yourself. I think that giving things like that forward is the most honest way to help people. You're not trying to always hold back and sandbag so that they have to rely on you. I think that is dysfunctional. But once you see how we behave in that assessment, then the second one is usually a little bit more collaborative, a little bit bigger. And then once the trust fall is 100, our biggest statements of work that can be in the millions of dollars is usually statement of work number 3. So it'll be for a long duration with a pile of people to really help them cross a chasm of some sort, depending on what they're trying to achieve with their business.
Okay. So I actually want to ask you some more about your sales process and how it developed. We are going to pause for a moment for a word from our sponsor, And but then when we come back, I'm going to hold Marsha's feet to the fire about business development and sales process. So now we have a word from our sponsor, SalesOlogy 3X Appointments. You know how frustrating and stressful it is when you leave every sales meeting wondering if your team knows how to sell because they're not selling and all you ever hear from them are excuses. They blame your marketing. They say you need to do more social media, and they say you need a new website. You know something's wrong. You don't quite know what it is, and you're even starting to wonder if it's you. You don't have a lot of options. You could fire them all and start from scratch, and that would be expensive. And you're really sick of waking up in the middle of the night wondering how to fix it. Well, imagine instead that you have an easy-to-use, replicable system that ensures your team can easily schedule qualified appointments. And imagine that your team is excited and motivated. No more excuses. And you feel good. SalesOlogy 3X Appointments can make that happen. If you're a business owner or a sales manager with an underperforming sales team, let's talk. Click on the link to my calendar in the show notes, schedule a time, and I look forward to meeting you. And we are back with Marsha Wilson, who is the CEO and co-founder of ScaleSec and also a former client. And so I'm curious now. We were talking a little bit about sales process. When you first started ScaleSec, I keep wanting to say SalesSec, but it's not SalesSec. It's ScaleSec.
Stands for Scalable Security. We originally had that as our URL, Scalable Security, and it was our clients that kept abbreviating it to ScaleSec.
Well, that's even better than if you'd chosen it yourself. So
I agree.
Yeah. So you said the first few years business just came to you, and then you realized you needed to be doing a little bit more because things were changing. Pivot, if you would. So what did you do then?
So I would say 2020 and 2021, we had some large direct enterprise clients in addition to strong partner relationships with Amazon and Google. And creating those trusted advisor relationships with the salespeople at those partnerships really is what made the difference for us. So our ability to manage our sales pipeline came from the intermittent, consistent activities that we did with the sales folks at each of those clouds, because they're the ones that when they had reached out to other Big Four, other large systems integrators, and found that the work stream for security was lacking, they knew they could trust us and come to us. And so we were, at the time, I would say what we were doing was baptizing, proxying the sales teams at those cloud providers in order to represent us when they needed something like this. And by doing that sort of one-to-many, it kept us afloat for quite a while. But then, as everyone is aware, during 2021 and the pivot from everything's on fire to, and in the employee's favor to everything's on fire and in the employer's favor, that was where there was a lot of hit the brakes kind of panic. And at that point, there were changes happening at many of the different cloud providers. And you also saw Oracle Cloud coming in and kind of horning their way up to the table as well. And so there was a lot of chaff in the air. And it meant that we were going to have to also consider different ways of approaching the clients we were looking to help. So we went back to our list of teams that we had helped as a subcontractor and went out and developed, I would say, direct relationships. And with the exception, I think, of one statement of work during the year 2022, every engagement we had was actually direct, which was interesting to us. I mean, again, in hindsight, you're like, you should have seen that coming. You're ding dong. But the truth is the number of master services agreements you have to review, the lead time that is necessary. I mean, when I was working with the partners, they already had everything in place, and they'd simply say, let me lob you over a statement of work. You guys can start Tuesday, right? And I'd nod. Well, now you were looking at 3, 5, 7 months, especially with enterprise clients, before you would have from first touch to, the consultant arriving, so to speak, on the ground. And so that changed the amount of effort that it took for Aaron and I to actually land that fishy on the boat. And that takes away, of course, from a lot of the hunting that needs to happen in order to find new clients. And so By the end of 21, beginning of 22, we recognized, I'm sorry, that was middle of, what year is this? I think that was in late 2022. And we reached out to one of our previous VPs of cloud compliance, who was an actual awesome salesperson from Coalfire from before. And we said, would you be interested in coming back as a pure salesperson working on variable comp, because your ability to understand our business is already there, and it worked out. And so he is our current executive technical director and CISO that does a fantastic job of helping clients understand the value that we bring and reaching out to folks at conferences, and with what little leads that we have, because we're in the middle of a big old blanket flip for the website. The website has not been done since, gosh, it's been at least 6 years. It needed a major overhaul, and we're in the middle of that right now. So, that's kind of the bringing it up to speed to where we are right now. And so we are working hard to work the leads, top of funnel leads, through the website and through some webinars that we're doing in order to lob those over to our executive tech director. At the same time, Aaron and I are working with our consulting directors on the expand motions that are necessary to maintain and keep the relationships that we have with our current happy clients.
Okay, because one of the questions that I asked you, for our audience, I made Marsha and everyone that I interview fill out a form for me. And one of the questions that I asked on this form is, what drives you crazy about managing a sales team? And I was slightly perplexed by your answer, because you told me that you have one sales executive for business development, for landing new clients, and then you have 3 consulting directors who are responsible for expansion,
right,
in existing clients. And you said, well, I don't have the sales team. And when we were talking before I hit record, I said, well, gee, I'm confused. That sounds like a sales team to me. And so would you share with our audience, please, how you responded when I said, it sounds like a sales team?
It is, I guess, and it's funny because you always have to level set. When you talk to clients about cloud security, you do the same thing. So I'm talking about an assessment, they're talking about a vulnerability scan. And so you got to figure out your apples and oranges that way. So I see what you're saying. And the way that I was thinking about it, although I'm willing to morph it to, make a conversation work, is that I definitely see a difference between new sales and hunting and customer success expansion, which I consider farming. I consider that more of the old school, real professional services consulting, maintaining those long-term relationships, versus getting someone to say, scale who? You talk to what? You do what? And so in my world, sales is the first thing, but not the customer success. But I could see your argument that both require, both bring revenue. I guess both are sales. So I can see that as well.
Okay. Yeah. No blame being, cast here.
No.
It's just, I found that to be really, really interesting. So Marsha, if someone would like to get in touch with you,
mm-hmm.
What is the best way for someone to get in touch with you, to learn more about ScaleSec and what you do?
Well, knowing the world that we live in, I would love for them to call me directly. But the truth is, they generally kind of want to, especially with working in security, people want to check things out before they actually commit. So going to our website, which I believe we're going to put in the link as well, but that's www.scalesec.com, and you will see the types of offerings that we have. We generally start with an assessment, and then we're comfortable doing the engineering and remediation against so many compliance frameworks, so that you can ensure that the data that you have and the data that you're managing for your clients is secured in a fashion that's going to commit that trust as a trust fall toward your ultimate clients as well. So,
and also LinkedIn. We're going to post your website in the show notes, and we also have your LinkedIn profile, so you can connect with Marsha and through LinkedIn as well. So,
please.
And after you finish listening to this podcast,
mm-hmm.
go to the show notes, click on the link, and you'll be able to connect with Marsha.
I will also share that we do usually about a blog every week to 10 days, and our blogs are highly technical, and our blogs are sought by many of the technical folks on the other side of the bridge that are looking for answers that have not yet been uncovered by the cloud providers themselves generally. We'll take what they've offered as new technology and new services, and then we put it into, when you go to apply this, here's some ways you can do it, and here's some things that you might want to know. So we have over 250 blog posts that are up to date and recent and very interesting for the technical audiences, and sometimes it can enable the sales technology leads that might also be listening to your podcast.
Okay, and people can find your blog posts at your website. Okay.
There's no requirement to fill anything out. Just go click on them, read them. And if you learn good stuff and you want to ask more questions, there's certainly a place you can reach out to us.
Okay. Well, we will put your website and also your LinkedIn profile in the show notes. So again, you want to connect with Marsha, you want to read her blog posts, finish listening to the podcast, go to the show notes, click on the link.
Sounds good.
Yes. And so you have been listening to Salesology, Conversations with Sales Leaders, the art of faster, easier, more profitable sales, with my very special guest, Marsha Wilson, CEO and co-founder of ScaleSec. And I do have to say that I am so very proud of you, Marsha, from where, when I first met you in 2015 to where you are today. Go, Marsha, giving you a virtual gold star right now.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, you get credit for a lot of it because you taught me that, everybody in sales already knew this, but they're talking about, the 200 to 1, the number of touches you have to do to get yeses. But that each time I talked to someone, I wasn't annoying them because I'd already looked to see that they might be the kind of person that needs what I have. And if they say no, they might say yes later. And I was so afraid of that before I talked to you. I didn't want to bother them. I figured they could find me if they were interested in my work, but that's not the case. You have to keep people aware of the changes that are happening, and it may just hit them at the right time, at the right moment. So it changed my philosophy about sales. I appreciate you.
Well, thank you very much. You just made my day. And so for our audience, if you have found value in listening to today's podcast, then please think about one sales leader, one business owner, one sales professional that you know that might also find value in listening to this podcast. And please do share the link with them. And until we meet again, visualize yourself surrounded by cash, really large bills.
You've been listening to Salesology, Conversations with Sales Leaders, the art of faster, easier, more profitable sales. Be sure to follow so that you don't miss a single episode. And while you're at it, please leave a rating and review, and be sure to share it with your friends. Tune in every week for more exciting insights and wisdom on transforming sales. And until next time, visualize yourself surrounded by cash, very large bills.